Okay, so I hope everyone's doing great. Today we'll look at some grammar. So I was saying we technically finished the writing section of the SAT, but that was prior to us having a YouTube channel, right? So um I guess we have to take it back. We have to run it back. We have to go back and look at what we did before we had a YouTube channel. Um, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna share my screen right away. And this book I'm using is from the read. It's called Redesigned SAT Grammar by Erica L. Motza. Uh, if you are part of the WhatsApp group, you should be able to find the link to the Google Drive that has this book. So this book was tailored. I know you see it's written Redesigned SAT, but it was tailored for the old uh the older SAT, right? So as you may know, the SAT has been revised. So it's now like we have the digital SAT and it's kind of different. So this book is meant for the old SAT, but a lot of chapters are still essential to the new SAT. And so what we're gonna do is um we're gonna run back some chapters that we did already, just so that we have them recorded this time. So in case you guys need to go back and look at them, you should be good. So it's kind of because obviously by the time when I took the SAT, I took the old SAT, so what's kind of confusing is if you go to the YouTube channel right now, you see that we have a video on relevance that Kutema covered, right? And the under reading, and she also covered infographics. And the thing is, reading and writing have now been fused together, right? But prior to this format of the SAT, we had reading separately, writing separately, and now they're kind of fused together. So I I will touch relevance and I'll touch infographics because these are repeated in the new SAT, but um, these have videos already on the YouTube channel. So if you want to learn more about them, you can find them on the YouTube channel, the New Seasons Youth Program SAT channel. Uh, so what I'm going to do is I'll probably just go straight to chapter 5, right, which is dictions, idioms, and register. And like I said, if you were part of the if you're part of this group learning, you've probably already learned this with me before because I've covered this chapter before. But if you're someone like Winter who this is his first time coming here, then this might be new to you. And if you missed the particular lesson last time, then this might be new to you also, just because we did not have a YouTube channel by then. So yeah, so I'm going to do dictions, idioms, and register. And that's because we have a small class in attendance today. We try to make it try maybe not take too long on that. So I just try to go to that book, that chapter 57. Okay, so we have dictions, idioms, and register, right? Diction, if you kind of think of the word dictionary, so diction just refers to an author's choice of words, right? So the kind of words that a person uses in terms of um, it could be, I don't know if you guys have had a situation where you say like, oh, someone speaks like colloquial or like formal English, or like semi-formal, or so that's kind of what we're going to be looking at in this context as diction. And idioms pretty much in this context are going to be like a fixed uh, fixed phrases, right? That are certain words that just go together in English. not for any particular grammatic reasons, but that's just how they are. And register technically means a type of language that's used in a certain area, right? So for example, um, if you if you if let's say you come from a country like Zambia, right, and you go to the United States, and then you say, I need to go to the Dingo, people might not know what you're talking about, but like in Zambia, Dingo is like a slang for dining hall, right? So it's like they fuse those two words together. And instead of saying, so Dingo will register to people in Zambia, but will not register to Americans, for example, if that makes sense. So register is just basically like a certain type of language or lingo that's like used by a certain area or a certain group of people, right? Um, for example, people these days will say Riz, like, oh, he's got Riz, she's got Riz. But maybe the older generation might not know, like you're referring to like charisma on, you know what I mean? So register is like just a specific uh word choices that also like relate to a certain group of people or area. Hopefully that makes sense. This is from the English section, so you do not need to remember definitions just because you will never be in a point where the exam asks you to define what a diction, an idiom, or a register is. The only reason I'm explaining these terms is so that when I give you a breakdown of an explanation and I say diction, for example, you should be able to know what I'm talking about. For this particular chapter, it should be good. All right, so we have an example here, right? First example we're going to look at just to see what we are talking about is reads as follows, right? In 1585, Captain Rolfe Lane and 108 colonists, including scientist Thomas Heriot, built a, built a small settlement on Roanoke Island off the coast of North Carolina. From this base, they explored parts of eastern North Carolina, obtained samples of various metals, and tested them at the site. In less than a year, however, they exhausted their supplies and were forced to return to England. All right. So in less than a year, however, they dashed their supplies and were forced to return to England. So we have they exhausted their supplies, they expended their supplies, they diluted the supplies, and they undermined their supplies. Any volunteers here? I know we have a small class today, but again, we're let's try to make this as interactive as possible, just so we can still learn something effectively and just be out of here quicker, so I don't have to repeat and ask so many questions. So if there's anyone that wants to go for it, let me know what your opinion is, and I'll give you my opinion. We can look at, we can talk about what the answer is, but let's learn, let's discuss. Any ideas looking at this question, what you think the answer might be? Okay, so I'm guessing we have no and people are feeling shy again. Uh,
Expended. B.
oh, there we go, there we go, there we go. Oh, okay, is that a? Oh, I see. I think the answer is B. Sorry, I didn't see the chat. That was Chawana. Is that Chawana that just responded right now?
Sorry, I didn't get that. Could you please repeat?
Oh, that was Keisha. Okay, Keisha, right?
Yes.
Awesome, awesome. So Keisha said B, I reckon, and I think Chawana said B as well. So we have two Bs. Going once, going twice, guys. Um, any other suggestions? Any other answer choices? Anyone wants to agree, disagree? That whole shebang. Okay, so we have two Bs. Uh, I'm just gonna ask a question, right? I'm just gonna ask a question. Is the reason why you I wouldn't know, so that's what I'm asking. Is the reason why you avoided the answer A because when you say exhausted what comes to mind is exhausted means to like get tired, like fatigued out. Okay,
Yes. Basically. Basically,
okay,
yes.
okay, okay. Yeah, I'm just I'm just trying to understand. So, um, in this particular case, right? In this particular case, what's interesting is, again, I remember we're looking at dictions, idioms, and register. So I want to repeat this that there are certain words, right? Like what these guys might be calling idioms, certain words in English that might be correct, the fixed phrases that might be correct, not for any particular reason, but that's just because these phrases have been used so much that they've evolved as standard English, right? So this is probably like arguably one of the best explanations I have ever given to someone. So I remember once upon a time, right? I was teaching this same chapter, Dictions, Idiom, and Register. That was 2018. So the old SAT, and I was at this place in Zambia, right? It's like the biggest SAT prep center, and I was teaching this chapter, and there were two Chinese guys in that class, right? They're from this school called Chingelo, and one of them. So I said there's certain phrases in English that are correct just because they're correct. Like there's no particular reason as to why they're correct, right? So we have, for example, we have words like we have phrases like fall in love, right? Like I have fallen in love with you, or I want to fall in love with you, you want to fall in love with me. We say fall in love, right? We use the preposition in, fall in love. But we can't say it's wrong to say fall of love, fall to love, for by love. We can't replace the preposition in with any other preposition by, of, and whatever. We do not have there's no particular like grammatic explanation as to why for in love is correct and for by love is wrong or for of love is wrong. But it's just that these phrases have been used, the fixed phrases have been used so much that they've evolved into standard English. That's just the way it is. And so this Chinese guy tells me that doesn't make sense. There should be a reason as to why something is something. Like there should be a reason as to why something is the way it is. You can't say it's just because. And I said, well, it's just because. And because I had taken some Mandarin classes, right? That particular year, I had taken some Mandarin classes, so I had learned a bit of Chinese, and so I don't know what came over me. And then that particular day, I had this example. So I asked him, like in Mandarin, I'm sure you guys have heard of the phrase like "ni hao," which is like a greeting, right? But then there's a certain phrase, um, for example, if you want to say I'm a student, you say "你是学生," right? So you have "你," which is like no, actually "你" is you. So if you want to say you are a student, so you say "你是学生." So you have "你," which is you. "She" is like the verb to be, and then you have "学生," which is like the student, right? My pronunciation is probably off right now. I'm going to write it down here so that you guys can see what I'm saying. Because there's a certain point I'm trying to drive real quick. I know some of you are wondering why is this guy talking about Mandarin right now. So you have something like this. Yeah, Nishi Soishan, right? So you have hold up, someone is trying to join the meeting, I think. All right. So you have ni, which means you. This is the verb to be. So like you are, and then this is student, right? So directly this translates as you are student. But yeah, this means you are a student. And so if you say ni sueshang, that doesn't make sense because it's like you student, but it just doesn't make sense. You can't say that. You need to put the verb. So you can't just say that. But then Oops. I need to undo that. So you can't just say that, right? But the interesting part is, for whatever reason, if you are saying, let's say you are pretty or you are beautiful, you say something like this. I might have my, these are not characters. I know these are not like Chinese or Mandarin characters. This is just I'm just trying to spell them out. Right. So you say ni piao liang. So ni piao liang means you're pretty, but for whatever reason, there's no particular reason, but you just can't say ni shi piao liang, which ideally this she is supposed to mean the verb to be, like I said. So this is supposed to be you are a student, right? I mean, you are pretty rather in this case. But if I say ni shi piao liang, it's wrong. But ni piao liang is correct. But I can't say ni shi. I can't say ni sui shang. That's wrong. Right? I can't say ni sui shang. I can't say you student. I have to say you are a student. I have to say ni shi sui shang. So there's no particular reason as to, that's just the way it is. And I remember like the Chinese guy was like, oh, okay, I understand now. So it's like he refused that things are just the way they are in English, right? But then when we looked at an example from his language, he's like, oh, I get it. So I just wanted to first of all say that that's how English is going to work with dictions, idiom, and register, fortunately or unfortunately. The good part is if you've been speaking English for a good number of years, this won't be hard to you at any. You won't have to overthink. You won't have to overlearn things, new things. You should be good. So the word exhausted, we're looking at this in context. I think at the beginning here we had, here we had diction errors involve words that are incorrect in a particular context. So that's because they either have a wrong meaning or they just do not follow the conventions of standard written English. So we're going to look at two things. Context, meaning the word exhausted could mean you're tired, right? You're fatigued in a particular context, right? So we need to look at the surrounding context as well. It's very important as we look at this chapter. So to exhaust supplies also just means to completely use up supplies. So in this particular case, the answer is A, just because the word exhaust means to use up supplies, and it can be replaced by any of these other words. To the word, let me see how I can explain this. The word expendable, right? The word expendable, to expend something, means to, if you expend, I don't know if you guys have watched the movie the Expendables, but anyway, to expend means to let me think of a similar word. To sort of use out, to pay, to spend something, right? To usually I don't want to say spend because I'm looking at the word expend. So I'm trying to think of more similar words, like to sort of to dissipate something, to dish out something, to give something, or to waste something rather. I think waste is the best way word to use for this. And then we have dilute, which is to sort of I think similar to undermine. To dilute something is depending on the context, obviously, but to dilute is not exactly to make something weaker, right? To make something weaker, to like I don't know if you guys have ever drunk juice that's diluted, right? So you have something that's very sweet and then you dilute it, so you make it less sweet with like water or something like that. And then we have the word undermine. To undermine is that's sort of to like to also kind of make something weaker. But in this particular case, what was happening is these guys in less than a year used up all their supplies and they're forced to go back home, right? To return home, to return to England. They're forced to return to England because they exhausted all their supplies. So they did not make their supplies less effective, but basically they used up all their supplies, and which means the same as exhausted in this context. Exhausted means fatigue in a whole different context. But let's look at a different example just to try to get a better understanding of this chapter. So we have this example here that says a familiarity dash, the most common programming languages is useful for anyone who wants to pursue a career in information technology, IT. So do you guys think it's a familiarity in, or a familiarity with, a familiarity to, or a familiarity for? We're gonna try to increase this. Yeah. Any suggestions, or we've gone back to feeling
With
shy?
a familiarity with.
Familiarity with, is that Kisha?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, awesome. And Winter says with as well. Okay, that's great. Chawana will have another with. Okay, of course, participate. And you guys are no longer feeling shy. Pretend to feel shy usually, but Pretend to participated in the chat as well. Okay, great. So okay, and Chandy says with as well. All right, awesome. So yes, the actual answer is with. Can anyone tell me why this is the answer? And you're not wrong for whatever reason you think. I just want to hear what you're going to say, because my reason is going to be, it's going to sound silly. So I just want to hear what your reason to why this is the correct answer is that.
So for me, I chose with because this is what I mostly use. You see, I'm familiar with this, familiar.
Yeah.
So I applied the same principle. So it's just correct in some ways. Yes.
Yeah, respect, respect, respect. And I'm not going to put these words out of my mouth. I'm just going to scroll down and have us read, should read and stuff. There you go. Look at this. It says the phrase. Let me get a pointer. All right, let me annotate that up. Oops, I did not mean to do that. I did not mean to do that. It's let's delete this comment. Let's cancel that. It's, can I not delete that? No. Oh man. There you go. All right. I'm going to read this right here. Let me look for the annotate spotlight. All right. So it says here, the phrase a familiarity it always requires the preposition with. Any other preposition is idiomatically unacceptable, right? So that's what makes this correct. So there's no particular reason, but it's just there's certain words that just go together. You're always going to say stumbled upon. You'll never say stumbled on, stumbled to. You always stumble upon. It's just an idiom. Again, going back to the definition in this in regards to this SAT, it says idioms are English contains many fixed phrases known as idioms. When I was younger, like in my third grade, I was taught about idioms, like for example, my heart is under my foot, right? So things that are not exactly literal, just like figurative speaking. And yeah, but the SAT describes idioms as these certain fixed phrases, so things that just always go together. So although memorizing idioms should not be your priority, here's a list of some common ones. So if you guys open this book and go to page 58, you'll find a bunch of them. So you do not need to memorize them. I'm going to go through them just real quickly, but these are certain words that always go together. You're curious about, you're particular about something, you're not particular to something or particular with something. So you bring about something, like you bring about the topic, you complain about something, you set out for something, you set about, you think about something, right? You wonder about, you worry about. These are just words. I'm not saying these are the only ways you can use like these verbs. Worry, like you can say think of, for example. You know, you can use this, but I'm just here. They're just looking at the word about, and then you can have things like, oh, he or she is known as, or is known to be good at this, for example, or recognized as maybe one of the best. This serves as maybe a president, translates as, this means this, the same as this. Accompanied by, amazed by, assisted by, awed by, confused by, encouraged by, followed by, impressed by, obscured by, outraged by, shocked by, stunned by, surprised by, perplexed by, puzzled by. I don't really have to go through all this, but I will just for the sort of study. Celebrated for, compensate for, criticize for, endure for, famous for, known for, last for, look out for, named after, necessary for, prized for, recognized for, responsible for, strive for, wait for, watch for. I shouldn't have started going through all this. There's a lot of them. Across from, apart from, defend from, or defend against, differ from, or different from. You don't say different to, but it's different from this. This A is different from that A. Protect from or protect against, refrain from, in itself, adept in a language, adept at language, confident in the way you speak, engage in an activity, engage with someone, for example, firm in, interested in, involved in, succeed in or succeed at, take pride in, enter into, insight into, a native of, like this country, appreciation of, characteristic of, command of, composed of, comprised of, consist of, consist of, devoid of, approve of or disapprove of, family of, in recognition of, in the hopes of, incapable of. Wow, this is exhausting. You get the point, though. You have all these, right? Depend on, control over, critical to, native to. I said I'd go over all of them, but I'm not going to go over them. I'm going to zoom out a little bit. I'm going to have you guys. I'm going to have you guys look at them for a second, and I know there's a lot. I'm going to have you guys look at them for like a minute, and I'm just going to leave this 1 minute for questions. If you have any questions about how to use any of those common idioms or prepositions, please just unmute your mic and just ask, and let's look at it, and then let's move on. Any questions? So far, so good.
Yes, so far so good.
Awesome, love that.
Okay.
Oops. All right, so let's look at some commonly confused words. And again, like I said, this is a very it's a short chapter, so pretty much almost done. So there's certain words that are the thing about the SAT. If you guys have looked at any SAT exam questions, is the SAT literally tries to confuse you. Like, guys, college board sat down and said, let's confuse some people, right? Let's just make it hard for them. I don't know. Let's just try to trick them, or whatever. So the SAT would definitely test your ability, right, to just see if you're able to know the difference between words that might be similar. So there'll be pairs of words and that will be given to you, and sometimes it'll just be spelled differently but pronounced the same. Sometimes you have words that have maybe slightly different pronunciations and spellings, but they want you to be able to underline whether that word is correct in context. Remember, guys, context is really important, especially in this chapter, right? So again, it says here that these questions have the potential to test other questions, other concepts rather, but the correct answer will most likely depend on your ability to recognize which version of the word is correct, right? So they might be testing you in different chapters like prepositions or commas. If you look at the YouTube channel, we did a chapter on additional uses of commas, and we looked at a bunch of punctuation as well. But I think the punctuation lessons were prior to us having having the YouTube channel. So you might not find those, but we'll go over them again. Just like this particular chapter, like I said, we looked at it before, but it was prior to the channel. So we're gonna have it now just so we can have it recorded. All right, so here's an example, and I want to hear you guys' opinions. It says, for centuries, scientists believed in the existence of planets beyond the solar system, but had no way of knowing how common they were or how similar they might be to better known planets. Beginning in the 1900s, many people insisted that they had discovered exoplanets. However, their claims had little dash until 1992 when they first when the first exoplanet was positively identified. So their claims had little effect on the scientific community, or their claims had little effect to the scientific community, or their claims had a little effect on the scientific computing, or their claims had a little effect on the scientific community. So just hearing your opinions, guys. A, B, C, D. What do you think? Go for it. We have something in the chat that says, someone says C. Okay, Winter says C. Anyone? Okay, Tawana says C. Okay, you guys finding this easier? Okay, Keisha says C. All right, Keisha said I'm not going to talk this time. I'm just going to put it in the box. Okay, return to say C as well. Fine, guys. I'm also going to use a chat box since that's how you guys feel. I also say C. All right. So can anyone tell me at least why? Not exactly why C is correct, but can anyone tell me why any of the other ones is wrong? Just not. You can just pick any single one if you want to. Just want to hear that.
I feel D is wrong because it has improper punctuations.
D is, oh yeah, D is definitely wrong because it has improper punctuation. Yeah. So you cannot have a comma. That's commas are used for two things, right? Listing things, making a pause in a sentence. Is that it? Well, if you want to learn more about additional uses of commas, go to chapter 10 of this book, and or go to see the YouTube video we did on this lesson. But there's no need to have a pause there, right? And if you add a comma here, it means what comes before the comma from however up to effect is what you call a fragment. So if you want to learn about sentences and fragments, that's chapter 6 of this book. So that's a fragment, and then after the comma you have another fragment. So you can have two fragments. That's not grammatically correct. So that's correct. So you're right. D is wrong because of improper punctuation. Does anyone want to go for it? Also tell me any other reason why any other of the answer choices might be wrong. You can pick any. Okay, I'll go for it. All right, so for example, I'll say A and B are wrong for the fact that we have to use the word effect, not affect. To affect something is to like have an impact on something, right? So if let's say I say something, you guys say something bad to me, and then that affects my day, right? So what you've said has affected me. To affect is a verb, right? You affect someone, you're doing something, you're affecting someone. But when you affect someone, you have an effect on someone. So effect is like a noun, right? The effect is the impact that someone feels, but to affect is you to actually do the verb of impacting, I hope that makes sense. But that's why A and B are particularly wrong. So I'll be left with C and D. With SAT, I'll have to do a lot of counseling. If you guys have done math with me, you'd know that you just quickly eliminate A, B. So A, B are out. So for me, I would if this was an SAT exam, I'll remove A, B immediately. I look at C and D. I see the incorrect punctuation on D, and I'm out. Okay, and this is a list of some commonly confused words, right? So for example, you have a lot. A lot means large quantity, but you also have a lot, like to give out something. So you like to allot money to a project, for example. You have accept, which means to receive, but then you have accept, which means with the exception of. You have advice, which is a noun, right? But when you advise someone, that's a verb. You have affect, which is to have an impact on, but then the actual impact is the effect. You have allude, which is to make a reference, and then you have elude, which is to evade. You have an allusion, which is a reference, to allude. And then illusion is something that's not real. And then you have cite, which is to attribute, right? To attribute to something, like to make a citation, like in an assignment, for example. But you also have site, which is a location, right? Doug, how much your site? So you have sight, which is the ability to see. You have device, which is a machine, but then you can make a plan, which is you can devise a plan. Okay, you have lay. Lay is a noun, right? It's followed by a noun, rather. You can lay So you're using the verb like you can lay the book on the table, but you have lie, which is you lie down. Right? It's not followed by noun. Right? You just lie down every morning, but you lay something. Right? You lay something like a book on the table. Perspective is a point of view, but prospective is potential, like a prospective client or student. To proceed is to come before, but to proceed is to move along. Right? To proceed is to go ahead. To precede, before, post, after. Than is used for comparisons, right? So this is taller than that one. Okay, use it for comparison. But then means sequential, right? Then means next. This one comes first, then that one. You have to, which indicates direction, and you also have to, which means also. I don't know why I said to with like so long. I did not have to do that. All right, so we have this as well. You always say could have, should have, would have, might have. You don't say could have. I have never heard anyone say could have, should have, would have, might have. So I don't know. But the master put it here because maybe people say that, right? And then you also say, I've heard this one before so many times. You're supposed to do. So you're not supposed, but you're supposed to do something. I'm used to you. You're not used to you, but you're used to you. You are something, and then these are we have some other commonly confused words here that could potentially be tested, right? Like to access something, or you have the excess of something, right? Access and excess, addition and addition, right? You have adopt and adapt, right? You have afflict and inflict, anecdote and antidote, assent and assent, assure and insure, averse and adverse, capital and capital. You have side versus side versus side, which you just looked at, collaborate and corroborate. You have conscious and conscious, right? So like to be conscious of something, right? Like, and then you're also like using your conscious, like, this is conscious, like you're conscious of something you're aware. So like you're conscious and no longer, maybe you had an accident, but you're not conscious, you're like aware of something, but then you also use your conscious to think of something. You have cancel and to cancel, like canceling, you have a council, like, like the city council or whatever. You have dissent, illicit and illicit, right? Elicit a reaction, but illicit means like illegal. You have emit versus omit, imply versus infer. You have precedent and president. You have principle and principle. Respective, respectful, respected. You have simulate and stimulate, and so on. So you have a bunch of these. Let's look at the infinitive form real quick. The infinitive form means just using the word to before a verb, right? And then ing means the gerund and the participle. So if you say like you get a verb like walk, and you say to walk, and that's the infinitive form. But then if you say he's walking, or if you say he has been walking, that's like a participle, right? So you have participles and gerunds, almost the same things, depending on whether it's a noun or a verb. Again, you do not need to know this definition, so I will not. And I'll not like overemphasize certain things here. And you probably already know what you know what these are. You might just not know the technical terms. You do not have to. I remember that for the exam. So that's why I say you do not need to worry about the gerund or participle distinction here. But particularly, I think you say one works with verbs and one works with nouns. You do not need to remember that. If you see an ing underlined word, plug in the to form and vice versa. Okay, so let's see what they mean by that. So we have this example here that says, though she was one of the few women of her time gaining international prominence, Clara Barton would not have described herself as a proponent of women's rights. All right, so though she was one of the few women of her time gaining international prominence, you change that to though she was one of the few women of her time to gain. So there's this claim that's here. Like I said, this is might be one of the most weird SAT topics, right? Because we're used to structure, but this, as you can see right here, it says, unfortunately, these questions must be answered by ear. So there's no rule and there's no trick to indicate which form should be used in a particular situation. Like that's the only chapter though. That's what, at least that's what I'm going to tell you. This book here has 18 chapters, but this is the only chapter that has like all these what if you're learning, it might look like an excuse, like, oh, well, this guy doesn't know how to explain. Like I've had people tell me like when I ask a question, a math question, why do we have this or why do we use this formula here? And they tell me it's just the rule. And usually in math, that's like kind of like cap. There's usually like a reason, right? It's not just the rule. You can derive a formula. There's a certain way to approach certain things. But unfortunately, okay, for this chapter, It is what it is, guys. All right. So sometimes for a sentence to make sense, right? It says you can switch the infinitive, right? The to form with an ing form. And then you must also place a preposition before the ing form in order for a sentence to make sense. So let's look at an example right now. Again, this might not seem to make sense, but let's look at an example and then you see what they're trying to say. So deactivated viruses form the basis of vaccines, of many vaccines known for their effectiveness dash disease, right? So I want to, for now, I want to finish reading this. It's important for you guys to read all the way through, but for now, I'm just going to focus on this part. So deactivated viruses form the basis of many vaccines known for their effectiveness to prevent disease, or their effectiveness in preventing disease, or their effectiveness with preventing disease, or their effectiveness preventing disease. A, B, C, D, guys. A, B, C, D, guys, want to hear your thoughts. This is probably like the last, this is one of the last examples, rather, almost down the chapter. Okay, so we have something in the chat. Let me just check that. Okay, so someone says B, Windows says B. Anyone else? Any? Okay, so B as well, because someone's put in. Okay, we have another B. Okay, and another B. You know, it'd be crazy. All of you guys are saying B, and then like all of you guys are wrong. I think that would be crazy. Okay, so you actually have effectiveness in, so you guys are actually right. So this is an idiomatic phrase. So something has like the effectiveness. You don't say effectiveness with, because when you say effective with, for example, if I say paracetamol, okay, so say Panadol is effective with aspirin, it means it's only effective with another thing, but you need to be effective in the problem. You need to be effective in solving the problem, in that healing. So for example, if I say paracetamol is effective in, or aspirin is effective in healing headaches, for example, then that's good. You don't say effective with. Effective with means like along, besides, side by side with something else, right? So it's effective in. You're not effective to, you're not effective with. So it's effectiveness in something, and that's an idiomatic phrase, and it's correct. Okay, so you can have so usually what they're trying to say is usually it's the to or the ing form. One of them is correct, but there are certain cases, right, that you have both of them being acceptable, but then the SAT won't test you for that. For example, won't test you on that, rather. So soon the members of the dance company will begin to rehearse for the performance, or soon the members of the dance company will begin rehearsing for the performance. So again, don't memorize these exceptions. You have a list here of some of them. Some common idioms that use ing, for example, accused of being, consider being, describe being. You have idioms that use to, like decline to, decide to, claim to, neglect to, prepare to be. So you have all these. You can look at them. You do not need to memorize them. Again, you do not need to memorize them. You do not need to memorize them. You can answer it kind of by ear, but if you've been speaking English for a while, this shouldn't be hard either. But those should be a good list for you to refer to. Let's look at register. So again, so this refers to how formal or informal a language is. So I want to tell you guys that most SAT passages are actually use a semi-formal or a moderately serious tone. Okay, they're usually not very casual, usually not very formal. In the old SAT, we had like these reading passages that were like, they would look like someone is like the author was writing from King James version of the Bible, something like very, very political, king-like, old school type of English. But apart from the formal passage of the old SAT, basically the SAT is usually in a moderate tone. So So we in the SAT, you should always, if you see something that's too casual or too formal, you should be alert. Okay, be alert. And but the correct thing is always like look at context and then look at the surrounding words as well. So we have an example here, right? So during the Nimrod expedition to the South Pole in 1907, Ernest Shackleton led a group of explorers on a voyage to the South Pole. Shackleton and the members of his expedition endured a great number of hardships, but when they finally arrived, saw a bunch of awesome stuff, or they perceived myriad captivating visuals. They were greeted by many fascinating sights, and they noticed some pretty interesting things. What do you guys think the answer is? And give me your reasoning, if possible. Okay, let's start with answers before we go into reason. Okay, winter is quick, huh? Okay, notice some pretty interesting things. Okay, so we have a D, we have one D. Anyone else? Yeah, we've seen now that they're wondering, should I just follow D as well, or should I go for something else? Heads are button right now. Okay, we'll have another D. There's more pressure now. There's more pressure. What's Keisha thinking? Should I go with the crowd? Should I go with what I think? Should I? Oh, it's crazy. It's crazy, guys. It's getting heated up. Thoughts? Thoughts? Anyone else? We have an A. She just said I'll be different. She said, I'll just explain using psychology. So I'm going to be different. Anyone else? Anyone else? Pretend they're quiet this time. So it's a difficult one, huh? Let's coach you. Coach you on it. Okay. I'm just teasing. I'm just teasing. Anyone else? Okay, so again, just like diction questions, I want to say the register questions are kind of hard, not hard, sorry, let me take that back. It's kind of hard to study for, like, but it'll be an easy topic. So it's an easy topic, and I'm confident that you can really like thrive in it. And the new SAT probably doesn't even cover too much of this. Again, I need to go through the new SAT properly. I've gone through the math section. I haven't gone through much of the English section. But based on the advice I gave someone to use, I scored through and I looked at which topics I thought were repeated, like infographics, and it looks like they've taken out a lot of topics from the new SAT, but looks like things like this still find themselves somehow, not too many times on the test. But yeah, like I said, this might seem like something that's hard to study. Because it requires you to be familiar with what like standard English is, like linguistic conventions. So you also need, but for this one, you need to determine is it informal, is it formal, is it moderately formal, and all that can be acquired through either practicing a lot, just consistent practice, or just just being exposed to different types of writing or speech. So in this case, I don't know if you guys remember me saying the SAT is usually semi-formal. It usually carries a moderately light tone. Let's read this question. I'm going to read this phrase. I want to read this phrase, this paragraph rather. I'm going to read this paragraph one time, and I want you guys to tell me what do you think the tone of this passage is. If it's formal, informal, or semi-formal. And that should help us determine what our answer is. So during the Nimrod expedition to the South Pole in 1907, Ernest Shackleton led a group of explorers on a voyage to the South Pole. Shackleton and the members of his expedition endured a great number of hardships, but when they finally arrived, so far, what do you guys think? Do you think that's formal, semi? Was it hard to understand? Was it, does it sound playful? So was it informal? Was it formal? Was it informal? Or was it semi-formal? Let me make it easier for you guys who like the chat box. Instead of Kisha, they want to put me more. So we'll make all of it. So is it A, formal? Is it B, semi-formal, or is it C, informal? What you guys
I
think?
think it's semi-formal
Think-
because the tone of the paragraph is not so serious, but then again, it's not taken too lightly.
Okay, that's a good answer. So using that reasoning, you think it's semi-formal, right? Let's just start with straight up elimination. So saw a bunch of awesome stuff. Do you think that's the answer?
No, it's too casual.
There you go. Okay, I'm loving the energy. I'm loving this guy sounds serious, you know. It's making me feel like I'm making me feel like I'm too casual. All right, and then D, notice some pretty interesting things.
It sounds to fit the tone of the paragraph.
Okay. Let's go back to B. B says perceived married captivating visuals.
B again sounds too serious because they're using a lot of like complicated words.
Okay, too formal. I concur with that assessment. You know, that's like that was just unnecessary for me to say as well. I could have just said I agree. All right, so I agree. All right, okay. What about C? We're greeted by many fascinating sights.
Yeah, I'm not so sure if C.
There
It
you go.
just
That's
didn't
what
sound
interrupt
good.
you. Yeah, okay, but you're not sure, right? So like right now, and then that's the thing with English, right? They try to make you feel like it's subjective, which usually English is subjective, but the SAT is always objective because it's a standardized test, so you have to be fair. So just in case anyone else is also going through this confusion, so right now, Chawana, let's break down C and D. So you said we've agreed, right, that the passage is semi-formal, right? And now we're trying to break down whether it's C or D. We're greeted by many fascinating sights and noticed some pretty interesting things. If you read those two, does any of them sound somewhat casual?
Notice some pretty interesting things sounds somewhat casual.
Yep, that is like, I don't think I mean, you could, but it's like, I noticed some pretty, like even just the word some pretty, the word pretty, the pretty is it's a very casual, I mean, unless maybe if you're proposing to your girlfriend, it's not a casual, it's a serious word, man. And you're so pretty that I think, oh, it's serious. No jokes on that one. Otherwise, anyway, so notice some pretty interesting things. I think that's very casual, right? Like, you know, oh, it was a pretty cool day. It was a pretty chill day. You know what I mean? Like that's kind of what it's given. And C is just it's a moderately semi-formal, moderately formal tone. So the correct answer is actually C. And for that reason. And is everyone okay with this? Does anyone have any doubts? If there are any doubts, any disputes, we can look at it. We can argue nicely. Not argue, we can debate nicely. I'm just playing. So everyone's good?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, cool. Kisha is okay as well, so I think we're okay. I'm good. Kisha, you stopped? Okay, that's good. You think you're good? You're not sure if you're good? Oh my goodness. All right. Kisha, stop talking to me. What happened? Did I piss you off? Man, it's crazy. Rotendo just laughs. With Kisha, stop talking. I don't know. It's a rough day, guys. All right. So, guys, this is actually the wait. I'm forgetting how to use this thing. Why? Let's forget about that. Yeah. So this actually brings us to the end of the chapter. So if you go to page 64, you're going to find a short exercise. You guys feel free to go through it. Feel free to go through the book. I'm going to post it. I'm going to post this in the group so that you guys don't waste time studying all 18 chapters. If you haven't studied them, that's great. But with the new SAT is only focusing on, there's certain chapters that you should focus more on. So I'm going to try to break it down for you guys. I have only scrolled through the SAT, the new SAT English section. So please do not come kill me or quote me on this. Okay, I've only scrolled through. The SAT I wrote was different from this. So I've only scrolled through, but from what I've scrolled through and I talked with the other tutors, and I think we had made a list of what we think the new topics are. With math is interesting because math doesn't change. So yeah. Last week you met with Kutema, but the previous week you met me and we were looking at section module 4, module 2 of math. We're looking at the second module for math from practice test 1. And the last time you met me before that, we're looking at the first section of math. So today we decided let's look at English. So next time, if you see me sharing a link or something, most likely we're going to look at a practice test. Most likely we might go through a chapter, but we might look at a practice test. No, might look at some math, might look at some English, most likely math. Depends on the moods and the vibes or the structure of that day. That most depends on the structure. You shouldn't follow moods and vibes, guys. But yeah, so this is objectively the end of the lesson. But before we wind up, do any of you guys have any questions? Do you have any questions? It could be math as well. It could be English. Any questions? Maybe you're practicing and you got stuck and you need some help. Again, you guys, if you're practicing, you need help. Anytime, just feel free to. I think you've got my number, so feel free to just text me. Shoot me the message, and we can look at it together. I'll be glad to help you. Just shoot the message at any time. If I might delay, but I'll always get back to you. Then when it's an SAT question or whatever, I try to be. I'll try to be as quick as possible. See, okay, this is urgent. So if you've got any questions, feel free to let me know. Do any of you guys have any questions at this point? Any questions? Okay.
None from me.
Okay, awesome. So, all right, because we usually have an opening from 4 to 6, right? So we actually have a lot of time on us. So yeah, it means you guys are having an early one. So thanks for your time, guys. Thanks for attending. Just keep it up. Keep practicing for the best in your preparation. If you need any questions, please. I'm literally just like a call away, right? Call, text, let me know, preferably call. But yeah, let me know if there's any way you think I can help you, and I'll be glad to. Thanks for attending. I will stop the recording here. And also, if you have any questions off the record, that's okay. So yeah, because someone is joining us when I'm leaving. That's crazy. But yeah, so again, thanks. You guys have a good day, good night, depending on where you are right now. Also, if anyone's watching this video from YouTube when it's posted, feel free to just leave any questions or whatever in the comments, and we can look at that as well. All right, guys, this is it for me.